It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf. Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 180 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined, as usual, by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the United States of America, Gary Action Jackson. We want to thank everybody who tuned into our show on Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA last week, which is turning 40 here shortly. It was obviously huge all around the world, and we talk about the differences between success in the UK versus the US here on our show, since I've lived in both places, and Jackson and I are big fans of UK-based music, and we were a little surprised that Born in the USA not only did so great in the US, but overseas and especially in the UK. And to that end, I want to read to you a letter from Simon C. from England, who gives us a little insight into that time. I just wanted to let you all know how much I enjoyed the Born in the USA episode. Really interesting insight into an album that, as you pointed out, was huge here in the UK. I remember Springsteen being played on the radio almost constantly throughout 84 and 85, although the only single that really stuck out for me at the time was Glory Days. I don't think many people really understood what the songs were about or really listened to the lyrics, and I've included myself in that. As to why the album was so big here, I think it was just that American music had started to become fashionable again, and Springsteen really embodied what was current and popular. Remember, there was a TV show called Entertainment USA, which had started in 1983, and people were starting to take an interest in American culture, probably for the first time since the early 70s. Prior to Born in the USA, Springsteen wasn't really that well known, but once the album gained momentum, people wanted to jump on the bandwagon and became quite cool to be a fan. I think he was seen as a more serious alternative to what had been around in the early 80s, and people wanted to buy into that. It was amusing to hear Jackson's views on the Dancing in the Dark video, which I had completely forgotten about. I watched again, and he's right. The dad dancing is embarrassing. Thanks again for a great show, Simon C. Well, thank you, Simon. Thank you for listening, and thank you for that perspective on why something called Born in the USA would be popular in the UK. But enough about last week's show. This week we are talking about another incredible album, which is turning 40, and that's Purple Rain by Prince. Now, I know we don't do a lot of dance or R&B kind of music on this show, but Purple Rain kind of transcends all genres, right? It hit the mainstream rock charts. It hit the Billboard charts. It hit the dance charts. It hit the black charts. It hit the R&B charts. It hit charts all over the world. 25 million sold, huge cultural touchstone, and it was tied to the movie of the same name, where we got to see Prince on screen performing, doing his amazing spins and dances and jumps and playing that guitar like he did. So popular that it not only won Grammys, but it won an Oscar for Purple Rain. And if you grew up in this time the way Jackson and I did, you know it was everywhere. And even though maybe your parents tried to shield you from it because, let's face it, some of this stuff is a little sexual, well, it got to us anyway, and the videos were cutting edge and of the time, and we knew that as this is turning 40, we had to talk about Purple Rain, and because I had the opportunity to see Prince within a year of his passing, I thought that would add to the story as well. So we're going to jump into that here shortly. But first, we have a little bit of business to take care of. As usual, we like to mention we're proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of about 100 different shows. Music related, there really is something in there for everyone. Check them out at pantheonpodcast.com or follow at PantheonPods. And we got to give a shout out to our amazing sponsor, rarevinyl.com, who's based in the UK, folks, but they ship all over the world, and they have over 250,000 items in stock, including some killer Prince stuff. And they've got great imports from Europe, from Japan, from wherever. They've got cool picture discs. They've got tour programs, ticket stubs, point of sale items, CDs, whatever you're looking for, you can find it there at rarevinyl.com. And the cool thing is they've given us a code to offer you. If you use UGLY, UGLY, when you check out, you can save 10% off your entire order. Not just one item, but your entire order. And I've seen some great orders come through lately when people have bought 3, 4, 5 different things. Even one order with 10 different picture discs. That's great. And it cost them hundreds of pounds or hundreds of euros or hundreds of dollars, but then they saved dozens thanks to the code UGLY. So for you vinyl collectors, get to rarevinyl.com, use the code UGLY, and save yourself a big, fat 10%. Now back to Prince. There's no doubt that Prince was one of the premier artists of his time, and really of all time. And between the fact that he had found his footing as a recording artist, this was his 6th album, plus MTV was starting to give him a big boost and get him out into the suburbs there. It was just like a bunch of brush fires that eventually turned into a wildfire and propelled Prince into the stratosphere, which he never came back down from after Purple Rain. So let's jump in here. This is a fun one. We're going over Purple Rain as it turns 40 here on The Wolf. So we were talking on our last show, Jackson, about how Born in the USA, huge, sold 30 million copies, but this was kind of the era of the enormous album, right? I mean, it's like Michael Jackson came out in 82. It was huge in 83, 84. Mm-hmm. Lionel Richie's was Double Diamond, Can't Slow Down. It came out in 83 or so. Springsteen's Born in the USA came out in 84, sold 30 million, was huge in 85. And then Purple Rain here was kind of wedged in with all of those. Sold 25 million copies. One of the biggest selling albums of all time. And that includes, 17 million in the U.S.?
That sounds about right. It was definitely a great time if you were in the music business.
It was 13 million in the U.S. real fast.
Okay, 13 in the U.S. But yeah, I was thinking about that because the amount of money being spent on records at that point in time was insane because some of the same people had to have these same records.
Yeah, me. I had all those records on cassette, by the way.
So people were going out and buying all these things in bulk and not, I guess that's where the entertainment dollars were being spent at that point in time.
Well, thanks to MTV, you got to see these guys. It used to be that the only way you could really see one of these big entertainers is you could buy the album and then you've got the cover to look at.
Right.
Maybe you would see them on something like Dance Fever or something like that, or...
Be quiet. I'm trying to watch Dance Fever.
Yeah. You'd see them on like Don Kirshner's rock concert. Maybe you would see that once in a while, kind of thing.
That is a good point because before this, or before MTV, I mean, there was Rolling Stone, there was like Hit Parader, Cream magazine, I think, but there wasn't a daily influx of music news. And now you got, not only did you have music about the bands, but about what they were doing, what was happening in the music industry. So I think it was a lot more mainstream now, and it could even be on kind of in the background. If you didn't, so you were just watching it, and maybe you didn't really care about whoever it was that was on. But for whatever reason, now they piqued your interest because, like you said, the way that they look, how the video was put together. You know what? I dig this. Do you like the song? I like the whole package.
Exactly. And Prince certainly knew about fashion, knew how to get people's attention. Mm-hmm. He had women in his band, which was not the norm back then, right? I mean,
correct. Yeah.
He's got Lisa and Wendy in the band, and they look amazing and they sound great, plus he's got Sheila E. kind of like opening for him most of the time. Same thing with her. She's amazing. So this is kind of bringing pop music, and it's R&B and dance. Let's face it, Prince kind of transcends genres here. I mean, because he can play that guitar so well, he did get on like some mainstream rock charts and, appeal to that rock side of things. But obviously because he's black, he's going to end up on the R&B charts. But because he has some great beats on his songs, he's going to get on the dance charts, So this, I just remember Purple Rain being huge, but I also remember there's some controversy around Purple Rain. Like, it's okay that I get a Michael Jackson album. It's okay that I get a Lionel Richie or a Bruce Springsteen album, even though sometimes they're dealing with, more adult themes. It's kind of hidden in some stuff. If you're a kid, it can go over your head.
Right.
So some of this Prince stuff, you can't miss exactly what it's about. It's very sexual, some of this. And I just remember it was easy to like convince my parents, like, it's okay for me to get Lionel Richie or Michael Jackson or Bruce Springsteen tape, that's all right. But Prince, I remember Mom, no, that's not for you. That's not for a 10-year-old or whatever it was. But you couldn't deny, I just wanted to have the biggest albums and the best albums. So you couldn't deny the popularity and the power of Purple Rain.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was everywhere, and kind of, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately for Prince, like no one really knew what was going on with him. And I think that was part of his whole mystique was, yeah, I do my own thing. You can't really put a label on me. Like you said, what kind of music was that? Well, it's rock. Well, it's R&B. Well, no, it was his own thing. And the way that he looked was very bizarre, especially for a 12-year-old boy.
To the suburban people, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, even look at the cover of Purple Rain. He's sitting on a motorcycle. All right, cool. But he looks like, now he's got this frilly, like, piratey shirt on and a leather jacket and heels, and I don't know what's going on. And he kind of looks like he's gay, but that he's also surrounded by these really hot women. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on here.
It's kind of a puffy shirt. You kind of look like a pirate.
But I don't
Maybe you want to be the pirate comedian.
I was watching the movie and I turned to my wife and I said, Prince did want to be a pirate. Because that shirt is all day puffy.
Yeah, but he still bought it off the Junior Miss section. Prince is like 5 feet tall,
That was the thing that sucked is, so he's walking around in those heels, and I'm like, that's what kills him. Wearing those damn heels all the time, jumping around on stage. He got himself all screwed up with, back injury, hips, and everything else. You watch him, he's jumping off the risers. He's
doing splits.
I know. You're going to hurt yourself.
It's an amazing performance. It's something to behold. But yeah, you're right. There's a price to be paid for that,
And the thing too is he was never, ever, ever, never not Prince. Like he was never like, I'm just going to put some shorts on it.
Right.
No, it had to be dressed to the nines all the time.
Even when he invited Charlie Murphy and his buddies over to play basketball in the middle of the night.
Correct.
How about the shirts against the blouses? Game blouses. All right, so let's go back in time a little bit on Prince here.
Right.
This is his 6th album.
Right. Which you kind of forget about, too. Like, you remember 1999, like, what's this, like his 2nd or 3rd? No, it's his 6th album.
Exactly. And he started when he's like 19 or something like that. He's a really young and small kid. But if you go to, 1999, so, that came out in 1982, kind of when MTV is really starting to take off. And, he's got 1999, the head song on there. He's got Little Red Corvette, which was a big, big song for him. And then Delirious. Love that track.
Yeah.
All of those did really well. And the album sold incredibly well also. We're talking 4 million copies in the United States. He's making the videos. What people don't realize is that Prince, he needs the Revolution to perform. He needs the Revolution to tour. But he doesn't really need them to make an album. Prince basically plays everything.
Right.
Everything on the record. He doesn't have to, but he generally does. He can play the keys. He can play the guitar as well as Jimi Hendrix, play the bass. He can do high vocals, low vocals. It's kind of amazing.
It must have been an odd deal to work with him because insanely talented, but again, he can do everything. So it's like, get out of the way. You play it like this. Well, that's kind of annoying because that's my gig. I play the fill in the blank, the bass, the keyboards, the drums, but he can do it all himself. So
right.
It's more like it's the band, but he's telling you what to do and you're just kind of along for the ride.
Pretty much, and the last time, I guess he had Lisa Coleman, who's Lisa, on the keys doing vocals. She'd done vocals for about half the songs on the previous album. She was with Wendy Melvoin, who's the lead guitar player. Look, Prince is pretty forward thinking about all that stuff. And maybe it's because he can lay it all down and then anyone can kind of maybe come in and play it. But he wants those female voices for sure. And I think he wanted that female energy on stage with him.
That's kind of what it seemed like. And again, he's doing his own thing. He doesn't fit into a box. And I think that at some point in time, he got along with everybody and they worked together. So it could have been more, maybe not so much your gender, but how you can play and how you fit into the band. And if it turned out that you were a woman, perfect, even better.
Right. And so they kind of show on all these 9 songs, it's Prince and the Revolution, but on the beautiful ones, Darling Nikki and When Doves Cry, that's all Prince. Like, he doesn't really involve the band on any of that. But then we get into some of that in the movie. I mean, this isn't just an album. This is a movie soundtrack. They made the Purple Rain movie starring Prince and starring the band in it and starring Apollonia Cotero and Morris Day in the time.
Correct.
Morris Day dressing like a pimp most of the show. He really was. I mean, those long jackets.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure that's the look he was going for. But yeah, back to Lisa and Wendy. I mean, Lisa's singing background vocals on most of the songs. Wendy's playing guitar and letting her vocals. They also get some spoken word stuff. We'll kind of get into some of that. But he does turn some stuff over. He's got Dr. Fink, who I guess his name was Matt Fink, but he was the guy who was always in like surgical scrubs. Remember that guy from the videos?
Yeah, he always had sunglasses on, even in the movie. He always has sunglasses on, and yeah, he dressed like a doctor. And it's one of those things, or in scrubs,
right?
And yeah, like what's going on with that guy? Well, don't worry about it. There's a lot going on here. Why wouldn't the guy be dressed like a doctor playing the keyboards? Okay, cool.
Why not? You got Mark Brown, who goes by Brown Mark, I guess because he was brown. He's playing the bass, and he's got that deep voice, going on some stuff there. But I just remember this being so universally loved. Like, it was out there. It was everywhere in 1984 and 85. And I was too young to see the movie at the time. But they had clips of the movie in certainly, some of the videos and stuff like that. And so you could kind of get a feeling for, okay, yeah, Prince is more than just a guy who can sing a song. He's got a lot going for him.
And I think that was always the deal for me between him and Michael Jackson, because they were rivals for years.
Yeah.
And Michael Jackson, yes, he sold more records, but he was never in a movie like that. He was never the star. And I think he was never a guy who could play a whole bunch of instruments and put stuff together like that. Like, he was the singer, but he needed musicians. Like you said, Prince didn't need anybody.
Didn't need anybody. And he's got, to this day, has hundreds and hundreds of songs in the vault that he just kind of put down. And then he just, all right, well, maybe I'll do something with that one day, or maybe I'll sell it to somebody or whatever. And they're just sitting in there. He's just an incredibly creative person. Plus, you see it with the hair, with the style, with what they're wearing, with the dance moves. I've always kind of been of the mindset that if you need to do all that dance move and have all that choreographed stuff, then it's because the music isn't that great. If the music can stand on its own, then you don't need all that stuff. I've kind of grown in to say, look, maybe you don't need it, but when you've got music that compels you to dance, that compels you to move, it's okay to do a little dance, to do a little movement with it, maybe even choreograph it a little bit, because you don't want people running into each other. You don't want to fall off the stage. So I get it a little bit better now that I'm older. But that's just kind of all part of it with Prince. He can do everything. And you're right. Michael Jackson never played anything. We did that talk on The Greatest Night in Pop where Lionel and Michael are supposed to write We Are the World. And Lionel's like, he doesn't play anything. And so I'm sitting at the piano trying to, work this out or whatever. And Michael's just humming. He hums all this stuff. Now, he can do all that in his head. He just can't do it with his fingers. Whereas Prince can't do anything with his fingers.
And I know that, especially when this record came out, people were like, oh, well, if he wanted to just play the guitar, he could be the next Jimi Hendrix. And you're like, well, yeah, whatever you say. But when you listen to this, the guitar parts are hot on this.
Yeah, they are.
Even still, this long ago. And the other thing, too, that I kind of forgot about, because he got away from it, with like the Prince guitar, like the one that was the cymbal, and he had the weird, they show in the movie, the white one with the big thing that comes over the top of it. That Telecaster that he's got for Let's Go Crazy is cool as hell. And the way that he plays that is both funky and rockin' at the same time. Yep. And I kind of wish that at some point in time he had put out more of a rock album just to see what he could do. And who knows, it's probably in the vault there somewhere.
Yeah. I know.
Him just wailing on these tracks.
I just wonder, who all is in charge of all that. Could we ever see the Prince rock album one day?
Yeah. I mean, maybe his sister. I think she was the main
Taika or something like that.
Beneficiary of that. So who knows? This was the first record that he did as Prince and the Revolution, though, which I always thought was kind of cool.
And they did a couple more albums together. I think by the end of the 80s, they all had kind of gone their separate ways. And Lisa and Wendy kind of broke off to kind of do their own thing, just be Lisa and Wendy or whatever. And Mark Brown, or Brown Mark, I should say, I guess. It's the same person. you know, did some producing of his own. I mean, once you're in Prince's orbit, then you're obviously going to be in demand.
Right.
You know, Matt Fink, Dr. Fink, he went on to do a lot of stuff, work with a lot of different folks over the years. So, and I didn't realize that Lisa and Wendy were together, that they were like a couple.
For a little while, yeah.
Yeah, for a while. And then even when they weren't, they still recorded and performed together as Lisa and Wendy. But it was just like so hot. The whole thing was just like dripping with sex. So it was like, yeah, Lisa and Wendy might be together. Prince and Brown Mark might be together. They may all be together in a big circle. I don't know.
Yeah, no one knows what's going on there. And he was never going to tell you that either, because that was part of his deal too, is you know what's going on? None of your business.
Yeah. He never spoke to anybody.
I don't remember him ever having big interviews. I mean, later on he did, but at this point in time, I don't remember anything like that.
I mean, I think they say he's shy, but I also think it was creating his mystique.
Yeah, that's the part of it too is the less I say, the more you guess as to what's happening. Correct.
Yes, exactly. And so you have this movie that's a pretty big hit. Now, it's not a blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna, it's rated R, and it should be, right? It's not supposed to be for everybody, but I mean, huge. It won Grammy for Best Rock Performance, Best Score for a Soundtrack. He also won an Oscar for Best Original Song for Purple Rain.
Okay.
So he's not just getting big sales, he's getting that big kind of adulation from the critics. And sometimes huge sales will lead to that, but not always.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out which came first. Did they think they were going to make this movie and then they wrote the songs for the movie, which is kind of sounds like to me, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, fair question. I feel like it all kind of came together here. I mean, it grossed $70 million against the $7 million budget.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That's pretty big good, time.
That's very good return on your investment. Well,
absolutely.
I was thinking about that too, watching it. I'm like, yeah, they didn't spend any money on this because they didn't go anywhere. They didn't, there weren't any big sets, any big special effects or anything like that. So yes, they could have made it for very cheap. They didn't hire anybody. I think the only credited actors were the mom and dad. Everybody else was either in the band or in one of the other bands.
Yeah, or Morris Day or whatever.
Yeah,
no, it took place in Minneapolis, where he's from. And, is it First Avenue? Is that the name of the joint that they all play at? Yeah. And he's the kid, right? Everyone calls him the kid, whereas Morris Day's like, you want to be with me? You don't want to be with the kid. And... Vanity, I think, was supposed to be in the picture.
Correct. Yeah.
She left to get her own record contract away from Prince. So Prince was like, fine, you're done. I'll go get another hot girl. And he did. Apollonia Cotero is smoking hot. And she gets to be in the movie with him, play his girlfriend, play his hot, sexy girlfriend. She gets to sing along. But, I mean, how's Clarence Williams III he could play a crazy better than about anyone else I've ever seen. Like, he can be really intense, that guy.
What I want to know is, did you watch the movie for this thing?
No, I couldn't find the movie.
I found it somewhere. I don't know where it was. But so my thing was like, you pull up to the house and it looks like a small house. Yeah, regular suburban house. But then all of a sudden they're down in the basement. There's like 14 rooms down there. And how did you get a piano into the basement of this house? I don't know. But yeah, you're right. He always plays like the manic, crazy person.
Yeah. And he's the one who verbally and physically abuses both Prince and his mother. And, of course, there's the scene with Prince coming and trying to, pull him off of her or whatever.
Right. But I remember, you said you were too young for this movie, and I don't remember seeing it when it first came out, but I remember there were people that I went to school with that did, and now watching it thinking, this is not a movie for kids. Like, this is I know Prince is in it, I know the music is in it, but there's some very heavy-duty themes in this. Yeah,
no doubt about it, man. And then, look, the song Darling Nikki is still about one of the dirtiest songs I've ever, heard, really, that a lot of people know. Obviously, it's in a big mainstream movie, and the scene where he's trying to basically humiliate Apollonia, and he does the Darling Nikki song or whatever. It's kind of shocking. I mean, honestly, and I remember sometimes I don't know how we did it. Maybe in music class or something, we were allowed to like maybe bring in tapes. If you had a tape, we could listen to it or something in class. If we weren't like working on something. And I'm like, we can't do Darling Nikki, guys. They're like, shh, it'll be funny. Come on, listen. I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble. You know what I mean? If the teacher hears that, she's going to freak out on us. We can't listen to that.
Please don't tell me you actually brought it in. I think you're going to tell me you brought it in.
It wasn't me, no, but I mean, that's the thing. I was one of 13 million people in the U.S. who had it, so I wasn't the only one. But
that poor teacher.
But that's the thing. I mean, it was like, this is at that time, if it was on MTV and people had the cassette, then it was around. It was in the air. And now I've got a note that says it's 15 million copies in America alone, not necessarily even 13 million. So it's a ton.
Okay. It keeps getting better.
Yeah, it's better all the time.
Even though Darling Nikki is very filthy, it may not even be the filthiest thing on this record if you really listen. There's some other things kind of go under the radar.
Well, and that's the thing. You have these incredible beats. There's a lot of moaning and interesting sounds going on at different points of this record, but it's still, I mean, it's amazing. And although some of it kind of sounds dated, some of the synths be like, okay, that sounds a little 1980s.
Yeah.
It's because he created it and then everything sounded like it afterwards, basically.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was after this came out, there was a huge rush to sound like this.
Right. Yeah. It's not just like, okay, well, that's dated. Well, it's dated because after he did it, then everybody else did it too. It's not just like it was a fad that he was jumping on. It was a fad that he was creating.
Right.
This is Mel Gannon from Simple Minds. You listen to the Ugly American Werewolf in London. You stay cool and see you soon.
And 5 singles off a 9-song record, all of which did, fairly well, to be honest with you. I guess we can start going through some of them here. You kick off the record with Let's Go Crazy. What a way to kick off any record, man. This song is pure, straight ahead, driven, pop, rock, dance excellence. I mean, if I could move, I would dance to this song all the time. What's the girl from Flashdance? What's her name?
Jennifer Beals.
Jennifer Beals, also a huge album with a soundtrack and a movie that came out around this time. If I was Jennifer Beals, I would have been dancing to this song all day and night long.
Actually, it's funny you say that because she was approached to be in this movie.
Doesn't surprise me.
And she said no because I think she was doing something else. But yeah, she was hot at this time. And I always like this because of wasn't there some soap that had the organ at the beginning of it? Like Days of Our Lives or something my grandmother used to watch, and it always reminded me of that because it was kind of that goofy thing at the beginning, where he does the church thing. Dearly beloved,
we are gathered today.
Yeah, I know. But then that guitar part at the beginning is just it. I mean, it's what 40 years old now, and it still sounds hot today.
Still hot, I know. It's and that whole organ, and it's kind of in church. I'm like, yeah, whatever this is. The afterlife. Yeah, okay, whatever, dude. But it's part of his whole performance. And then once it takes off,
right,
well, you're running on this thing. You don't need an Iron Maiden runner, man. This goes faster than that anyway.
And this is where I really don't like singles because when they put this on the radio on the single version, they cut that down. The organ part is there, but they cut it way down. I'm like, no, you got to have the whole thing, the ramp up to the guitar intro.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this one station that cuts everything. If anything has a single edit, they use the single edit. Ooh. Even for something like an Aerosmith song, like you just cut out the solo, you moron. Yeah. What are you doing? But anyway, it was backed it was the second single, and it was backed with Erotic City, which I guess was a single that kind of came out later in like 1989, but it was backed with Take Me With You in the UK. And it went to, and it was huge. I mean, it was huge for him. Went to #1 Billboard, went to #1 Black Singles, went to #1 Dance Singles, 19 Mainstream Rock. Now that doesn't happen.
Right.
#1 Black Singles and 19 Mainstream Rock just doesn't happen. #1 Dance and #1 Billboard, +7 in the UK. It was just such a great song, and it sold over 1 million copies in the United States. So that's a bona fide hit, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And the video was all about the movie. Like it was just clips from the movie. So that just hyped people up for that even more.
Well, and the performance of this in the movie was phenomenal, with him spinning around and then wailing on his guitar at the end. He basically goes to the top. Is there a riser above the drums? I can't.
It's a very big setup for a club.
It really is. It's pretty impressive, yeah. But he's wailing on that guitar. You can see, like, yeah, why didn't he just go the rock route? It's like, well, because you can be bigger if you're all things to all people, and you get on 4 charts with one song.
So when you call up that shrink in Beverly Hills, you know the one. Doctor, everything will be alright. Instead of asking him how much of your time is left, ask him how much of your mind, baby. 'Cause in this life, things are much harder than in the afterworld. This life, you're on your own. And if the elevator tries to break you down, go crazy, punch a higher floor.
So this is one of the best openers of an album ever, in my opinion. This is just, you're off and running here. That's an amazing song, an amazing beat to it.
And even the end of it, he's wailing on the end, and then the drums come in. It's almost like the end of, it's the first track, but it almost sounds like the end of the show, because you have that, big flourish on the drums and the guitar, and then boom, it's over.
And the
yeah.
I mean, it does sound like the end of a show, but you're just getting started here with Prince Rogers Nelson. And after this, I don't even think anyone ever referred to him as that anymore. Like, I remember reading some of the reviews, and maybe the one in Rolling Stone, and someone like Kurt Loder's like, now it's clear that Prince Rogers Nelson has elevated himself. Like, after that, there was no Prince Rogers. It's just Prince or him. Apparently, when people are working in his studio or working at his offices or whatever, his name is never mentioned, but they always say, like, he wants it done this way, or like, I'm not going to tell him that we can't do this, kind of thing.
Well, there's the rub there. I think that it would be amazing to, well, he's passed now, but amazing to have worked with him, but it was probably very difficult also, because he had, and that comes across in the movie a little bit too. He's got a vision. He may not always be super clear on how to share it, but he's going to tell you when you did it wrong. And so it's like, okay, I thought we had this, and now you're changing your mind and you want to do something totally different. Okay, whatever you say.
But you have to kind of do whatever you say, because
we're going to record tonight from 3 a.m. until 6.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Whatever he wants to do.
Yes, he's changed his mind. Somebody told me they saw him perform in Las Vegas, and the show was supposed to start at like 8 and didn't start until after midnight.
Yeah, it sounds like him.
Ooh, okay. And so after a while, you're like, am I in the wrong place? What is going on here? Like, what? And there was very little to no communication as far as what was happening. Like, was this even going to go off? Was he, I mean, I can't remember who this was, but they told me the show was amazing once it started, but it was like that. What are we doing here?
Waiting and waiting. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, so dig this. I actually did see Prince once, and it's something that I hold, I guess, dear to me. It's just one of those acts that I'm just so glad that I saw when I had the chance to see it. And he did the strangest thing, which I know it doesn't really surprise anybody. But of course, he was working with his band, of course, had women in it, and maybe it was called Girl's Eye or something like that. There's a girl named Hannah Welton in the band, and she's from Louisville. She was the drummer. So he came to Louisville to come to the Palace. Now, the Palace is a beautiful old theater, but probably holds about 2,300 people.
Okay.
Whereas if he just gone to the Yum Center, he could have played in front of 20,000 people if he wanted to. But on a Saturday and Sunday, he did 2 shows apiece. He did 4 shows in 2 days at the Palace. He did like an 8 o'clock show, and then he would do like an 11 o'clock show. This is PM. Both nights in a row. When that happened, I said, okay, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if one's going to be short or one's going to be long or whatever, but I got to get tickets to one of these, because there's less than 10,000 tickets for 4 shows. So I'm like, I got to go. I got to do this. I got to see Prince. And he started at 11 when I saw him. So I have to admit, I did not make it all the way to the end, because all the way to the end was like 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. God. And I'm on a date with the she-wolf, basically. But I made it through the whole first set, and he started with Let's Go Crazy.
Okay, so good. You got that in.
And he did, for the most part. I mean, from what I could see, he played that at all 4 shows. It's just the early show on the Sunday, he didn't start with it. He opened with it 3 of the 4 shows, and then for whatever reason, he just decided not to on show number 3. But it's something I hold in high regard, the fact that I did get to see Prince perform, because obviously, although I think they did something like 90 or 95 dates on the Purple Rain tour, I wasn't going to that when I was like 11 or 12.
No, yeah, that was not going to happen. And then for a while, I think when he was going through his whole Warner Brothers, when he was writing Slave on the side of his face, I don't think he played a lot of these older songs, the stuff, because he wanted to kind of distance himself a little bit.
Right.
And so then he came back to it. So I'm glad you got to see that, because that would be a shame to miss that one.
And, the fact of the matter is, maybe I didn't see all these because I couldn't stay out till 2 a.m. or whatever, but he starts with Let's Go Crazy and then does Take Me With You. He also does stuff that like he gave to other people. Like, he does You Got the Look.
Okay.
And he does Nothing Compares to You, which he gave to Sinead O'Connor or whatever. But I mean, he did in this night, he opened with Let's Go Crazy and Take Me With You. Also did Doves, of course, did Darling Nikki, but he just kind of did, just a little piece of it because he's not going to play the whole thing. Did I Would Die For You and did Purple Rain. So he played most of the album.
Okay.
So obviously in 1999, a Little Red Corvette, the first set was so hot, man. It was so good. He did Kiss. I was like, this is worth it, but I can't stay out till 2 a.m. So I'm ready to go when you are. She's always ready to go. He did 31 songs or something like that. Although some of them I think were teases. Yeah, about 3 or 4 of them were just like, I'll just play a little bit. No, we're not going to do that. Third Eye Girl, I think, was the band who was touring behind him. And yes, they were women, and that's what he liked to do. We better move along here.
All right.
Take Me With You was the second song on the record. Of course, it was also a single, the last single released in January of 1985. But this is a gear shift already. I mean, you can't go any faster than Let's Go Crazy, so you kind of have to throttle back right away, right?
Yeah. And it's nice. I mean, it's got that little light electric piano intro, bump, 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 bump. And then it goes into it. I mean, this is not a bad song. But yeah, it's just such a stark contrast to the first track.
It is, and it's got Lisa and Apollonia singing kind of his duet with him and singing throughout the song. It's a good little R&B song. Baby I'm a Star, edited, of course. Single edit was the B-side. Went to 7 in the UK, but only 25 on Billboard, only 40 on R&B.
I don't remember this song from back in the day.
Well, it's the last single, and it's possible that people are starting to get a little burned out at this point. Like, okay, we got it. We've seen the movie, which came out in July of 84. This record came out in June of 84, and the first single, Doves Cry, came out in May of 84. So it may be that they were starting to get princed out by the time Take Me With You came out. But I like it. You're right. The piano is good. It's a good game changer. It's got a lot of female energy in it. Well-written song. I would not skip it. It's just, compared to some of the other big hits on there, it's not quite the same.
And then that's tough on a record like this, because you've got so many big songs on this. Even to this day, all except for that one, all of the singles, When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain, I Would Die For You. Yeah, of the 5 singles, 4 of them are still in super heavy rotation. So yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
It's in your eyes, what can I say? They turn me on. I don't care where we go, I don't care what we do. I don't care, pretty baby, just take me with you.
Not because it's a bad song, it's just
there's just
compared to the
much.
other 4. Yeah. Moving on to The Beautiful Ones. Now, apparently there's a lot more of this out there, that there's kind of an extended jam that is featured in the movie, maybe during practice or something like that, band practice. And this is one, if I'm not mistaken, that Prince did solo. Like, this isn't Prince and the Revolution. This is Prince just laying all this down on his own. So he's playing everything, which is something he could do. It's a little slow, with some piano and synths, and Prince kind of talks a little sexy in this one and sings very high.
Yeah, he's got the falsetto. Yeah.
It's definitely got the falsetto going there. But then, when he's getting this kind of personal stuff, do you want him or do you want me? Because I want you, and it's starting to get he needs her, he wants her, he's moaning and screaming for her. Like, this is not for little kids.
No, and it's actually in the movie there, he's singing this on stage, and this is the part where Apollonia is on the fence. She wants to be a star. He won't do anything for her. Morris Day is going to put her in this girl group, and so Morris and Apollonia are sitting at a table, and he's singing this directly to her, like, get rid of this dude. And so it's just a very odd and uncomfortable moment for everyone in the club.
Yeah, I guess so. But that tells the story a little bit better. And
right.
It makes sense within the story of the picture. But yeah, he's so urgent and so intense in this song. And then, yes, you're right, it really comes through in the movie. It's like, because just the song on itself, it's like, yeah, the beautiful ones, always kind of get screwed over or whatever. Something he's probably seen at the club over the years.
And also, too, probably starting off as a 19-year-old and in the music business. I mean, I have no idea what kind of contract he signed back then, but I'm sure he saw people just get crushed under the wheels, and a little older, a little wiser now.
That's right.
What's it gonna be, baby? Do you want me? Do you want me? 'Cause I want you. 'Cause I want you.
That's right, yeah. And so it's moving the story along. It's actually Computer Blue I was thinking of, that there's long extended jams, and there's a lot of bootlegs of these things out there. And it was, I think, featured in some of the band rehearsals or whatever, that some of the outtakes of it, because I think it goes on for like ever. But it's pretty funky. It starts with Lisa and Wendy kind of talking slutty to each other at the beginning.
Remember when I said maybe that wasn't the filthiest thing on this record? You're like, she's like, Wendy, yes, Lisa. Is the water ready? Is the water warm enough? Yes.
Yes, Lisa.
Then let's begin. I'm like, wait, what? And then you go into the whole, like, what is happening here?
Yeah. Yes. Wendy only says yes, Lisa.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Lisa gets to say three different things. Wendy just says yes, Lisa, three times.
Yes, Lisa.
Yes, Lisa.
Yes, Lisa. Then let's begin. Yeah.
But some of the synths are kind of vary of the time here on Computer Blue. And honestly, there's a little bit of lyrics and vocals in here, but then honestly, it's more of an instrumental than it is a song. And like I said, I think this is something that they jammed on and had a very long version of that you can find somewhere.
And then there's a whole thing about how in the movie, his father is a failed musician, or he was a musician, and I think that was part autobiographical. And so the mid part of this was a piano piece that Prince's father had written back in the day, and so he adapted that to the guitar, and so yeah, it's mostly an instrumental.
Well, and Prince does an amazing job on the guitar in here, and obviously all songs are written by Prince on this record except for this song. He of course takes co-write it. His father gets a co-write on it.
Yeah.
Lisa and Wendy get a co-write, and so does Dr. Fink. So, and honestly, I think there's like a 20-minute version of this somewhere. They distill it down to 4 minutes so that it makes sense on an album. But this is one that, I don't know, it's interesting to have more background on it. And Computer Blue, I'm like, what does that mean? You having sexy computer relations? Computers weren't far enough along to do that back in 1984.
Wendy? Yes, Lisa. Is the water warm enough? Yes, Lisa. Shall we begin? Yes, Lisa.
All I know is that when they were playing basketball, he was calling these fruity plays like Computer Blue, Darling Nikki. I'm sorry, I can't I just can't. I can't do this without thinking of Dave Chappelle.
Or Charlie Murphy.
Charlie
Darkness. Charlie Murphy.
How about a game of basketball? You and your friends versus me and the Revolution.
Revolution.
They just laugh, and then they show up wearing the same clothes.
Same stuff they had on the club. I'm saying, I don't know if you're going to believe this or not, but that motherfucker could ball.
And that's what I heard too. Yeah, like that was not it wasn't a made up story, and I don't think it was even really embellished all that much.
That's the thing. That's why they call them true Hollywood stories. Because Charlie would tell these crazy stories about hanging out with Eddie Murphy back in the day, and they're all true. It's like when Joe Walsh goes, all those Keith Moon stories are true.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Computer Blue fades into Darling Nikki.
Which turns out to be patient zero for the PMRC.
I was about to say, this got Tipper Gore all upset. She got Purple Rain for her kids. They're all dancing around, having fun to Prince. And then this comes on, and she's listening to lyrics, and she's seeing her kids like grind around and stuff. She's like, I have to do something.
Now, as much as I didn't like that PMRC deal, there is something to be said with, I would not want my teenage daughter, or I would at least want a heads up that something is on the record like this, because woo-ha.
Yeah, it's very sexual. It's not even like innuendo. It's straight in your face. I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. That's like the second line. And, yeah. And so obviously that's going to upset, some housewives like Tipper Gore.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does is it gives me a story to tell my Dee Snider story.
Okay.
It gives me the opportunity to tell the Dee Snider story. Because back when I was a citizen, I was at a conference in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in one of those big halls, and there's all sorts of booths and stuff set up. And my colleague Allison comes over to me and she says, Dee Snider's over there. And we're kind of jerks. So I figured she's talking about some woman's got poofed up hair like a poodle or whatever. And she's like, no, it's Dee Snider. He's over there at the thing. So I'm going over there to see Dee Snider. You got to be kidding me. So I go over there. I'm in a suit, short hair, no beard. I got a little name tag on that says Mac. And his handlers are there. He's at one of the big companies that are showing there. He's like, yeah, you want to meet him? You can meet him and he'll take a picture with you. I'm like, yeah, sure. Cool. So I shake hands with him or whatever. I go, oh, D, man, I love it when you stuck it to the PMRC, man. That was so awesome. He goes, thanks, Mac. Here, let's pose and I'll tell you a story. So we pose, we kind of give the devil horns together. And then he goes, me and my wife, married 35 consecutive years. Alan Tipper Gore, not so much, because they were just going through the breakup or whatever. He goes, none of my kids ever had any problems with drugs. The Gore kids, not so much, because a couple of them been busted for pot or whatever, kind of thing. So it's like he still harbors a little resentment from that whole thing. And if you watch his testimony,
it's amazing.
He's was so sharp.
Yeah, and so concise. And I think they figured that he would just be like, you know what? Fuck you and all that. Nope.
Never saw anyone so underestimated in my life. And he comes in dressed like he's in Twisted Sister. It's not like he put on a suit for the day the way Frank Zappa did when he came in to testify. No, he came in and was, you're right, he was concise. He was very erudite. He was to the point. And he made them look foolish. And, it's like, they're like, you just insulted the senator's wife. I'm like, no, I didn't. I just said something about the woman who created the PMRC who just happened to be a senator's wife. Funny how that worked out, And it was great. It was so good. And that's why he'll always be my hero to this day.
But the problem that I have is, even if you read like in Wikipedia here where they're talking about, this led to, the PMRC, coming out with the sticker for the explicit lyrics. That's not what they wanted to do. And that pisses me off. That's not what they wanted to do. They wanted to straight up stifle free speech.
Yep.
They wanted to tell you couldn't use certain words or phrases or something like that. And that to me is not acceptable. You want to put a warning label on there so the kid, the parents know what's up? Fine. You want to tell me what I can say? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And they all thought that Mr. Rocky Mountain High himself, John Denver, was going to come in and agree with, all these senators or whatever. It's like, yes, you're right. We should do this. And they let him go last. He goes, I am against this in every form. Like, you do not dictate free speech. And some people took my lyrics and twist them around. And so I'm totally against all of that, and they're like getting up like, okay, we had to listen to the Rocket. You had to listen to the weirdo and Frank Zappa. Now, finally, someone we can all trust and we love, he writes these nice songs about coming home to West Virginia. This is the guy we can kind of get behind. He's like, no, I'm not with you people either. They're like, God damn it. They're all like walking out and stuff.
That's a great still picture of John Denver, Frank Zappa, and Dee Snider all sitting together.
Fantastic.
But the other great thing about this track too, which I had forgotten about. I mean, I remember the beginning part of it and the sex fiend and Nikki was grinding, and that's great. The end of it, he's got backward lyrics, so I'm sure that just threw people into the stratosphere also, because that's just straight up devil music.
That's satanic at that point, right? Yeah.
Even though apparently it says, "Hello, how are you? Fine, because I know the Lord is coming soon, coming soon." So nothing to do with anything satanic.
Yeah, no, Prince was a big Christian. At least he was kind of raised that way, and so it's all in there. Even though he's a sex fiend in his own right, I'm sure it's all done through the gaze of God, so it's okay.
Well, that's
okay.
I think that's something that he always kind of struggled with too. Is you're brought up with this belief, but then you get to a certain point in life and you start to have very odd feelings, and you want to explore that, but it's not what you should be doing.
It's not what you should be doing. It's not what nice young girls do.
Correct.
That's when Tipper Gore had to jump into action there. So as a song, it's shock value, if you ask me. I can't imagine listening to it outside of the context of listening to the album.
I knew a girl named Nikki, I guess you could say she was a sex fiend. I met her in a hotel lobby, masturbating with a magazine. She said, how'd you like to waste some time? And I could not resist when I saw little Nikki grind.
But the other thing too is that when you listen to if you listen to just the melody, it's very kind of happy-go-lucky, and then you listen to the lyrics and they do not match.
No, but that's called juxtaposition, and that's good. That's good work by Prince.
Hey, this is Mark from Performance Anxiety, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
That's side one, but there's no filler on side two, man. Side two is all pure pop, rock, dance greatness as far as I'm concerned. This whole second side is phenomenal, and it starts with When the Doves Cry, which was a huge hit. It was the first song off the record. It was backed with 17 Days in the US, 1999 and DMSR in the UK. There's of course a single edit because it's about 6 minutes on the album. It's a little under 4 on the single. But this did really, really well for him. And it's got some, I always remember the beat.
Yeah.
It's got some different textures in this that kind of make it, kind of special.
Yeah, I was always disappointed because the beginning, that riff is awesome, and then it just falls out. But the more that I hear it, the more that I like it, because it strips it back to almost nothing, and then he's just got that beat that goes through the whole thing. I think you're right. This was one that he did by himself. He just kind of layered it one on top of the other.
And that beginning part where he's going, I think Weird Al may have parodied that, like he was shaving, like, because it does sound odd. What's he doing?
I could see him working on this by himself in the studio with about 15 of these keyboards set up at like 4 a.m. or something, just putting this together.
Totally,
that's what he did.
Absolutely. But it paid off. 5 weeks at number 1. In fact, it held Bruce Springsteen's Dancing in the Dark out of the number 1 spot. Dance in the Dark was number 2 for like 4 weeks. First Duran Duran's Reflex held it out. Then When Doves Cry held it out, because Doves Cry went to number 1 for 5 weeks. So it's more than a month at number 1. That's a big deal. Number 1 in Billboard, number 1 in Black singles, number 1 in dance singles, number 1 in Cashbox, number 4 in the UK. 2 million sold alone in the US from this single, which is why you put out a lead single before you put out an album. But it also went to number 1 in Australia and Canada and hit top 10, top 20 all around the world.
And this one was always odd to me because it was all over MTV, even though when you watch the video, even today, you're like, ooh, there's a lot going on here that people could be upset about. I mean, he's in the, I mean, I know you don't see him naked.
I know, but he's getting out of the tub naked.
Correct. And then he's crawling across the floor naked. And yet they played this all the time.
And he directed this video, didn't he? I think I've got that note.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. I want to be more naked in it. Right?
Okay, here's a note. It was the last single released by a solo artist to receive a platinum certification before the certification requirements were lowered in 1989. That's interesting.
Okay.
And it recharted after he died.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, this was directed by Prince. So the song came out in May. Was it May 16th? It says here, released 1984. It hits MTV in June, and then in June, the album comes out. So he's building this momentum. And the band looks kind of hot. You know, they've got their, wow, what is that? I mean, some of it's like 17th century kind of stuff, you know, it's the frills and everything.
And I think that if I remember correctly, I think it's Prince, Wendy, and then the bass player. They're not even doing anything but dancing.
Right. Yeah. It's not even a performance video so much as it is a choreographed video.
Yeah. And
but
this one
huge hit for him.
Huge hit. But the problem is that if you watch the video, it's way shorter than there's like a whole guitar part at the end that they kind of leave out. Like it's really short. Watching the video itself.
Yeah, and apparently Dr. Fink had to come in and do the keyboards, you know, that big kind of keyboard ending at the very, very end.
Mm-hmm.
He had to come in and do something with that to make it work. But it works. It works in a big way. It's a great way to start off side 2. It would have been a great way to start off side 1.
Or I was going to say, to lead the album off, but to start the second side with this, not letting you down.
And it's an emotional song. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and then you had I was going to say, so you've got the parts with him naked in it, but then you've also got the scenes in the movie where he comes in where the dad's beating on the mom. So I mean, there's a lot going on in this thing.
A lot going on. Absolutely. Totally a lot going on. But then you go right into I Would Die For You, and this is pop, rock, dance goodness as far as I'm concerned. This is very short song, but has great beats, has great rhythm to it. Also had a little bit of choreographed stuff that the girls could do. It's like, I would die for you. Yeah. Darling, if you want me to you. Yeah, I would die for you.
I'm not too woman, I'm not too man. I am something that you never understand. I never beat you, I never lie. If you evil, I'll forgive you bye. Cause I would die for you. Yeah, darling, if you want me to, I would die for you.
Backed with Another Lonely Christmas. So he did go ahead and make a Christmas album because this was the 4th single released. It was released between like Thanksgiving and Christmas in 1984. So it's like, yeah, put the Christmas song out on it. Why not? Backed with Free in the UK. I guess he didn't think people in the UK celebrated Christmas. But went to number 8 on the Billboard charts. At the very end of the year is an odd time to release a single. But it still went to 8, went to 11 R&B, but only made it to 58 in the UK. Maybe because they didn't put the Christmas song on there. I don't know. But I thought in the movie, the song was great. And just the song stands alone. Like you don't need the movie to understand how good this song is.
Right. And it's also nice too, because the track before is pretty intense and there's intense themes in here. And now we've got an upbeat segue.
Happy. Yeah. Song, a brief one to the point. Woo! There's a lot of, hey, all that stuff in there. But it's a great song before we move to Baby I'm a Star. Now, you know this song, even if you don't know that title, folks. You know this song. You've heard it on the radio. It was used as the B-side on Take Me With You, but it was a single edit. He did play it at the Super Bowl, the halftime show that he did. So that may be where some of you know it from.
Okay.
The original cut of Tim Burton's Batman, it was used in the Joker's parade scene.
Okay.
I don't want to stop. But, it was,
yeah.
Hey, look me over.
Mm-hmm.
Might not know it now. It's so good. Great beat, great dance tune. This, you can't sit down to this. You got to get up and move to Baby I'm a Star. But see, this kind of plays into the whole Morris is not the star. I'm the star. I've got it going on.
And I really wonder if that was I know it was a movie and he made it up, but back then, was that really the case? Did you have these like 3 or 4 bands that were all vying for the number 1 spot at this club that everybody went to? And there's a scene where he's like, I've got 3, I don't need 4. So if you want somebody new, we got to get rid of somebody else. And of course, Morris Day is plotting to get rid of the kid because does weird
he's a
things.
threat. Yeah, because that, and he's better than he is.
Well, yeah, but the whole thing is, for the club owner, he comes on and does 1 song and then walks off, like, because that's just what I feel like doing tonight.
Right.
Okay, but that's not so great for business.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas Apollonia 6, I give them the songs to sing, I give them the choreography, and then they do that, or else I just go get somebody else to do it.
Correct.
So they fall in line,
Or it's Vanity 6, or whoever 6 I want to put in.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly. Maybe I make it 5. It's not like there's 6 of them, But 6 is close to sex. That's my theory on the whole thing.
Probably. What was the name of that song they put out? Oh, that's right. Sex Shooter.
Sex Shooter.
Right to the point.
Vanity was also in a movie with Clarence Clemens III.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Called 52 Pickup. Did you ever see that with Anne Margaret and Roy Scheider?
I believe that I did, yes.
That's some good late night Cinemax fodder.
She was in another movie too. What was the name of that? I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember.
Mr. Carl Weathers, I believe.
Oh, that wasn't a Rocky picture.
No. It was that's right. It was the classic. Should be the Criterion classic. Action Jackson.
Action Jackson. Which is why we have Action Jackson here on this show. It's because of Vanity, basically. So it finally has come back together here.
So you're welcome.
There you go. Then we move to the penultimate track. You finish out the record with the title track, Purple Rain, nearly 9 minutes. An opus, if you will.
But I'll tell you, listening to it does not feel like 9 minutes.
No, and of course the single was cut, and I think they cut it a little bit maybe in the movie, but not a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And he kind of gives credit to Wendy and Lisa in the movie.
Yeah, which is kind of strange because that's not the song that they wrote, but kind of they did, because this was a weird trip down how this got made. Apparently he proposed it to Stevie Nicks as like a country song, and she was like, "Yeah, I can't vibe to this."
Well, he sent her like 10 minutes worth of song, and she's like, I don't even know. Yeah, she's like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't put this together. But in the movie, the story is like, we do my songs. I'm the one who writes the songs, and there's a time when Wendy's like, there's this great song by a couple of great girls that you really ought to listen to, kind of thing. And when he's like, nah, it's my songs or no songs, kind of thing. Then he just kind of relents at the end, like, nah, this is by Wendy and Lisa, even though it's totally by him. Number 2 on Billboard, number 3 R&B, number 1 hot rock tracks, if you can believe that. Number 1 Cashbox, 6 in the UK, 2 times platinum in the UK. That's 1.2 million in sales, and 1 million in sales in the US
for the single.
For the single alone.
Jeez. Yeah. Although I guess even though Wendy's not credited on this, I think she did come up with those chords at the beginning to kind of change it over to more of a kind of a gospel sounding deal, which sounds really good.
It does sound really good. The B-side was God. I don't know this one.
Okay.
But certainly this is one of his signature songs. I didn't get to see him do this, but when he's like just squeezing, every squeezing that sound out of him, it's kind of, it makes it sound like he has to sing this. He can't not sing this. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a little side note. I like my old hippie music.
All right.
America, who's probably best known for Horse with No Name.
Right.
They have a great old song called Ventura Highway. Mm-hmm. And there's a line there, excuse me, boy, but I've been hit by Purple Rain, which came out before Prince ever even started recording.
Right.
Wishing on a falling star, waiting for the early train. Sorry, boy, but I've been hit by a
And so I'm like, I guess that's where he got it from. I'm like, no, it's not. It can't be. There are notes in a couple of different places that say that's where he got it from. But then you ask him what's Purple Rain. It's like, well, if the sky is blue and then you have the blood, then it's purple.
It's about the end of the world, right? Is what he's talking about.
When there's blood in the sky, red and blue or purple, purple rain pertains to the end of the world and being with the one you love and letting your faith or God guide you through the purple rain. So Judgment Day, that's Purple Rain.
And that's what America was talking about, right? In Ventura Highway?
No, it's not. It's basically about getting stoned and being out in California. Now, they're a duo, Dewey and Jerry, but I think Jerry's coming off the road. So they're replacing him. So I took the Wolf Cub to see them last summer. Decided not to do a show on it because I didn't think it would appeal to our listeners. But now that I basically saw the last tour of Dewey and Jerry, I'm happy about that as well.
Well, that's great. They still sound good?
Yeah, they're fantastic. And the people they have around them are, of course, fantastic. And they have great videos to kind of show them throughout the years and stuff like that. So anyway, it says the song was recorded during a benefit concert for the Minnesota Dance Theater at First Avenue, August 3rd, 1983. The performance was Wendy's live debut with the Revolution at age of 19.
Jeez.
And drummer Bobby Z said it was the sweatiest, most soulful hometown concert and one of the best concerts we ever did. So Prince was amazing. He would get people black and white. He would get men and women. He would get gay and straight to come in and just do your best.
Yeah, really, really kind of again, you kind of had to put him in a box to sell records back then, but really somebody who was never super interested in being in a box. And even I haven't listened to a ton of other Prince stuff. I mean, I'm familiar with the hits, but apparently this is his most commercial record that he ever put out. So he really wasn't that interested in. He was just interested in doing whatever jumped into his head, not so much what would sell.
Well, that's right. But he was also kind of wanted to make sure he was original. Apparently, after recording the song, he phoned up Jonathan Cain of Journey because it's like, listen to this. Does this sound too much like Faithfully? And Cain's like, look, we do have the same 4 chords.
Yeah.
But that's where it stops. No one's going to hear this and say, oh, that's Faithfully. He just ripped it. No, and I've never thought that for one moment in my life.
No. I mean, maybe if I go back and listen to it now with that in my mind, maybe, but yeah, no. And then I've got a note here back to When Doves Cry about how there is no bass on this. But there was at one point in time, but he took it off because he thought it sounded too conventional. So he was always looking for, I don't want to sound like anyone else.
Exactly. And I don't know how it sounded the night that I saw him because I left before he got to it. But I do know that when he did Halftime 41, that it was threatening to rain, threatening to rain, threatening to rain the whole time. And then when he plays Purple Rain, then it starts to pour. And it doesn't affect him one bit.
No.
And the crowd goes nuts. Like, oh my God, would you look at this? So this cemented his legacy. I mean, he's an incredible musician. He's an incredible songwriter and performer. But you have to have that one record where you point to and said, that's the high watermark. That's where
it all came together.
Came together.
His vision and, kind of popular taste came together.
Really did. Plus MTV, plus the movie. It all kind of converged. Because it's very rare, especially nowadays, you think, well, is something going to be number 1 in R&B and top 10 on the rock charts? No, that's why they have those charts, so you can get more stuff on there and different kinds of songs, different kind of genres on there. But he could cross over. He was a huge crossover star, which is amazing for someone who's like 5'1" and never did any interviews. But he played live. He didn't need backing tracks. He sang.
Yeah. There was a clip of him later on, and it was something blah blah blah. How do you feel about this? And he just looks right at the camera. He's like, "All I can tell you is my microphone is on.
It's on. It's on." Now, apparently, when he was having some problem with his painkillers, that maybe some of his shows weren't so awesome. I did hear something about that. Wasn't the case for the show I saw, but when he was starting to struggle with some of that, he apparently wasn't giving the best performance, but then maybe it's because he was so out of it.
Yeah.
Too. But like you say, you do all those, you're doing the splits and you're running around in heels and you're jumping off of risers and stuff like that. You can hurt yourself. And so, I don't know. I remember when he died, I mean, I saw him less than a year before he died.
Mm-hmm.
And that last tour he was doing started to get mixed reviews. Like one night it might be extraordinary, another night it's like, he was off, and we're really not sure what's going on with him. And it turns out he was taking a lot of pain medication, which ended up getting him in the end, and it got Tom Petty in the end. I remember it was like, what a waste. What a waste.
Yeah, you kind of forget about. I mean, I knew he was dead. I knew about when it was, but it kind of gets foggy. He was only 57. Only 57 years old when he passed away. The amount of stuff that he had left to do.
I know.
It's sad to think somebody like that goes so quick.
And the thing is, this album, I mean, it's so highly regarded. It's like one of the top 5 albums of the 80s. People regard it as maybe the best soundtrack, certainly of the 80s, maybe, top 3 all time, maybe number 1. It did win an Oscar after all. And even Robert Christgau gave it an A-. He shits all over everything. Metacritic gave it 100 out of 100. Really, not a 99 out of 100. No, 100 out of 100. Everybody's like 5 stars, 10 out of 10. Everybody. Although, here's the thing. It was voted second best album of the year in the Paz and Jop American poll of critics. And even though he gave it an A-, he said it was quirky, dangerous, and unabashedly pop, and it was also plagued by despair, and for Prince, ingratiatingly unsolipsistic. I don't know what that means. Unsolipsistic. If you just said solipsistic, dude, whatever. Okay, it's amazing. It's amazing is what it is. For a rock guy, and look, I don't listen to this anymore. It's not like I'm like, hey, let's put on some Purple Rain, because I got a 9-year-old. I can't have her listen to Darling Nikki.
Right.
Some of this is great, but I don't listen to this because I'm a hard rock guy. I'm a heavy metal. I'm a big riff guy. That's what I like to listen to. But this was very important as a kid, like creating my foundation of what melody is, what rhythm is. And even though I don't go back and listen to it much, I can appreciate it for the masterpiece that it is.
Absolutely. And the fact that there are some things that fall a little flat now on the synth side, but most of it still sounds fresh today.
Absolutely. No, there's not like, okay, this sucks. This, he shouldn't have done this this way.
Yeah.
It's all still really, really good. What an amazing record Purple Rain is, and what an amazing time for big records, and a record that was tied to a big movie. I mean, maybe not a blockbuster Indiana Jones Star Wars kind of movie, but a cultural touchstone that a lot of people saw. It affected a lot of people. Won an Oscar for Best Song in Purple Rain. Sold 25 million records, 13 to 15 million in the USA, plus millions of more in singles. It really solidified Prince as one of the premier songwriters, singer, performers of his generation, and really of all time. Can't really talk highly enough about this album. And for those who say, hey, that's not hard rock or heavy metal or prog, hey man, it is rock, okay? It was all over the rock charts. The guy could play guitar about as well as anybody in any big rock band you want to name. May not be the kind of music I listen to all the time, but I'll tell you one thing, seeing Prince live is something I treasure. Almost as high as Pink Floyd on my list of folks that I got to see and am proud that I got to see, who I'm never going to see again. And if you didn't live through it, you may not have the same appreciation for it, but you can appreciate how great these songs were and how it changed pop music going forward. So we want to know from you big Prince fans, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? Let us know. You can email us. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. Let us know the bands, the albums, the concerts, the DVDs, the books, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about on the show. Be sure you download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And if you're thinking about it, folks, hey, please go out and give us a positive 5-star review. It means the world to us. It helps us find more rock and rollers like you. And if you send it to us or we get wind of it, we might just read it on the show. Thanks, as always, to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, who has lots of great Prince stuff in their catalog. Use code UGLY to save 10% off your entire order at rarevinyl.com. That's it for this week, folks. We have some cool guests coming up in the future. We have some great albums to review. We got some live concerts that we're excited about, so you're going to have to stay tuned. So until next time, to all you rockers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.